South Africa has seemingly taken a hardened stance towards Israel and resolved to withdraw all of its diplomats from Tel Aviv for consultations. Minister in the Presidency Khumbudzo Ntshavheni made the announcement in Pretoria when she briefed the media on the outcomes of last week's cabinet meeting. Political analyst Professor Theo Venter now joins us for more on this conversation, and he joins us via our video link. Professor, thank you so much for joining us here on SABC News this evening. Perhaps let's start off here. We've seen reaction from all quarters, particularly looking at Parliament. What's your reaction to the latest decision by Cabinet?
Well, let's start with the reason for having diplomatic relations. The reason is it is a convention that has developed over many, many years, and part of it is to have open access to whoever we have relations with, so that we can talk and so that we can influence. So by cutting ties, you kind of limit the level of communication and the level of liaison. And the situation is quite interesting. Let me give you two examples, recent examples. What happened between India and Canada. We know that there was an incident in Canada of which the Canadians accused the Indians of being involved in. So there was a recall of diplomatic personnel, and India did a tit for tat. So it seems to me that is happening all the time. If you recall or if you pull out, the other side will do the same. It's part of the convention. If South Africa would like to do in the Middle East what we set out to do, which is similar to the situation in the Ukraine versus Russia, then having relations is a positive thing and not a negative thing. But like some of the political parties indicated, this is probably a message that is sent because we're calling them back for consultation. It's not like we're recalling them permanently. So it's kind of a grey area that we've moved in.
And of course, South Africa is not the first country to take a decision to withdraw its diplomats. At the same time, Professor, you know, when it comes to the decision taken, you are saying it's a grey area for South Africa. Do you think that this was the correct decision? I mean, South Africa, or rather the ANC at the 2017 conference, took a decision, to downgrade then the Israel the officers there, belonging to South Africa. One would say that when you look at this latest decision, they are saying that it's because international laws here are being flouted, especially when it comes to the war with Israel and Hamas.
Yeah, and by my count, 6 or 7 countries already did a full withdrawal, such as Chile, Bolivia, Chad did it, Honduras did it. So yeah, they're good examples. But like I said, our foreign policy is to strive for peace. Our foreign policy led us to a delegation to Ukraine and to Russia to see if we can get something going. And today's news conference was with a representative from the Ukraine. If that is our policy direction, then more contact is better than less contact as a point. But the ANC, as the ruling party, has got a very strong bond with the people of Palestine. They've said it at party political level. I think a similar message came from Mapelo from Parliament. But I still maintain that a strong message can be sent, but you shouldn't close down the relationships. It's a long-standing relation. And I also agree to the extent that the humanitarian crisis that we see unfolding before our eyes is crucial. And I don't think it is sustainable on the side of the Israelis. I don't think they can continue doing this all the time. They need somebody to talk sense in their heads.
And when it comes to this decision being taken by the country, what does it actually mean for South Africa? I mean, we also heard there the Freedom Front Plus leader saying that, it may affect, our economic ties. It may also affect South Africa's economy. When it comes to this decision, what does it actually mean for government in South Africa?
Yeah, let me be practical on this one. I think Dr. Peter Groenewald was correct. Is what Israel did, they approached their industries very similar to the Dutch, in that they became world leaders in biotechnology. They became world leaders in all kinds of technologies that we are using either on license or whatever. Israel, for instance, the leading country in the world on water technology, something that we can gain a lot of. And when you have diplomatic relations, what those officials do in the embassies here and there is to kind of oil the wheels between people in South Africa that would like to do business, people in Israel that would like to do business. Now, you can do that differently. You can use alternative mechanisms, but it is more expensive, and it just makes things far more difficult. But the situation practically would mean that we're basically closing offices, but I still think we have representation in some form or another in Israel.
And that's not the only problem, Professor, that the minister there in the Presidency, Khumbudzo Ntshavheni, cited, when she raised these concerns and this decision. There is also another problem in South Africa, and that is the Israel ambassador. And of course, when you look at the comments being made by the Israel ambassador, do you think that harsh steps will also be taken here by the South African government to either, of course, expel him for the recent comments he has made?
Well, she mentioned him, but she also is. I think it was also in her remark. It was clear that she was also talking about the American ambassador. Now, what happens in the diplomatic conventions is if an ambassador does something which a government doesn't like, they call you on the red carpet, and they tell you officially that they don't like what you're doing. But to kick out an ambassador out of a country, a very, very strong and a last step, and it is not done often. So I don't think that will happen. Now, the other issue that we must also recognize, the government is extremely sensitive about criticism of our foreign policy, but our foreign policy is not clear. We want to be a neutral observer, and we want to make peace. We want to get involved in making peace in conflict areas like the Ukraine and now the Palestine. But then we take a biased neutrality, if I can call it that. We've developed a policy of biased neutrality, and then countries tend to speak out. The Americans did on Lady R, and the Israelis did. The government don't like that. So he will probably be called on the red carpet, get a little rap on the fingers, and that's what it is.
And before I let you go, Professor, I just wanted to get your comments on the suspension of the minister in Israel, who has subsequently now been suspended for saying dropping a nuclear bomb on Gaza remains an option. Of course, the Israel government has decided to place him on suspension. What are your thoughts on those latest comments?
They should have fired him, not put him on suspension, because that is a stupid remark. It tells you something about the mood the Israelis is in, something that I picked up over the last 3-4 days. You don't hear the Israeli government speaking anymore. You hear the references to the IDF, which is the Israeli Defense Force, which to me means that Israel is now in a state of war where the military is kind of calling the shots. And I think that is slowly but surely happening, and that is not sustainable. And when you hear a minister making such a stupid remark, I can't think of suspending him. I think he should be fired.